This episode is brought to you by Groove Washer, the best record cleaners and protective sleeves for your vinyl collection. Ask for the Groove Washer from your local shop or go to groovewasher.com. Discount code VinylGuide10. And now, on with the show.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 385 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. And today we have my first face-to-face interview since the pandemic. Ross Knight of Cosmic Psychos joins us to discuss the band's history, the rare records of their career, releasing vinyl on labels like Subpop, Amphetamine Reptile, Mr. Spaceman, and more. Plus, Ross also talks about the Cosmic Psychos record he absolutely cannot stand. We cover a lot of ground today, and this interview itself was quite an adventure, so I'll tell you the story of the interview after you hear the interview. Stay tuned for the end of the episode. It's quite funny, and man, did my head hurt the next day. You'll also hear Ross talking about his new book, a children's book, The Incredible Tale of Little Roo, about a little kangaroo and some various characters and misadventures. And despite the more adult approach of many of the Cosmic Psychos songs, this book is for all ages. Even the littlest person in your life will enjoy The Incredible Tale of Little Roo. Google the book, find it somewhere to buy it, or if you're in the US, you may be able to get one direct from the merch table. That's right, Cosmic Psychos are touring the US with the Chats. Tickets just went on sale, so make sure you don't squander this chance to see two killer Aussie bands in one night. Drop everything and go to cosmicpsychos.com.au or thechatslovebeer.com. Tour dates for Australia, California, Seattle, Colorado, Minneapolis, Chicago, Canada, and all up and down the East Coast on sale now. See the Chats and Cosmic Psychos on the same bill. What a boggin. Oh, and hey, quick word before we get to the interview. There are hundreds of episodes of the Vinyl Guide podcast ready to be enjoyed for free anytime. Episodes with the likes of Steve Turner of Mudhoney, episode 384 of the Vinyl Guide. Jason Bonham discussing his dad John Bonham and playing with Led Zeppelin, episode 383. Chris Shiflett of Foo Fighters, episode 382. Jerry A. Lang of Poison Idea, episode 372. Nick Oliveri of Kaya Stoner, Queens of the Stone Age, Mondo Generator, and more, episode 360. Keith Friggin Morris of Off, Circle Jerks, and Former Black Flag, episode 352. Dale Crover of The Mighty Melvins, episode 305. And heaps more. Subscribe to the Vinyl Guide in your podcast app. Scroll, download, listen, and enjoy. And now, let us take you to the Cosmic Psychos Green Room at the Crowbar in Sydney, Australia, with a fridge full of beers and Mr. Ross Knight.
Well, let's kick into it. Ross, thank you so much for joining us. And we got Dean here in the background going to heckle.
Background, test 1, 2, check.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Thanks so much for joining us here. You guys just flew up this morning, yeah?
Yeah, we just got in about an hour ago, so yeah.
Now, how is it kind of getting back on the road now after so many years of inactivity just due to the pandemic?
Look, it wasn't too bad for us because we're kind of lucky. We don't rehearse, and the only time we really see each other other than playing shows is when we record. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we might do an album and I might not have seen. Dean only lives up the road, so apart from occasionally we get in touch with each other for a beer, but so we sort of had that big long break, but we just got straight back here, met Macca up in Brisbane, and we were going to practice and rediscover ourselves and that, but we just sat around, drank beer and played the show. It was fine. So,
did you guys create like a backlog of songs? Are you in a constant state of songwriting, or do you just kind of do it when the pressure's on?
Yeah, just when the pressure's on. Like I'll come up with a few ideas, and then we'll all come up with a few ideas, but we kind of like. We just get in there and say, okay, press record, and we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. So usually just a mixture of stuff. I think that explains it, don't you think, Dean?
Yeah, I mean, we all have other jobs and such, so we kind of, but there's not a lot of time for hanging out and writing songs together like a proper rock and roll band. So we do it on the fly, really. When we're in the studio, mainly, we'll all have ideas, though, as Ross said. But yeah, they're written there and then, really.
Right. So do you guys have a studio at at the farm, right? So you have the freedom to be able to press record anytime you want.
Not really. We just set up microphones in the gym shed.
Yeah. I've got a little demo studio at home, but we just do demos and things there. Yeah, the main recording is we get like a mobile recording set up, and they come down and record us down in.
Okay, so Mountain the Piss, that was recorded. The mobile recorder pulled in to the farm.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. We did the last 3 down at your place, didn't we?
Yeah, we don't even clean the shed up, so we got to stand over barbells and work around motorbikes, and we just leave it as is, and we just set up everything kind of wherever. Yeah, it's absolute death trap.
Get around all the redback spiders and everything like that.
Oh, it's full of crap everywhere.
Well, you know, it was interesting because there's that famous bulldozer that's part of the legend of the Cosmic Psychos. I was looking at your bass the other day, and that's kind of like its own bulldozer. It's got its own stories. Yeah,
look, it certainly has. I had a bass guitar which I smashed. I threw it up in the air and didn't catch it, so it broke in Potsdam in East Germany in '89, and that one friend of mine, my girlfriend at the time, partner at the time, Whitney, bought that for me in New York City in 1990, and that's been with me ever since. Although it's off the road at the moment because of my hip, it's too heavy, and I've got a crook hip, so I'm actually using a lighter one for a little bit. But that's been right through. That's the heaviest bass guitar I've ever picked up before. It just weighs an absolute ton.
That's saying something from someone who does powerlifting.
It is. And this powerlifter here can't powerlift much more.
Wow. Yeah, just looking at just the years of abuse and, stories that guitar must have.
Oh, yeah. Look, it probably gets a string change about every 5 years. But, yeah, anyone that's worked on it, if it breaks down, they find all kinds of things growing in the pickups and sweat and beer and blood and broken fingernails.
It's like the Congo rainforest or something in there. You hear things go, and when you open it up.
I'm surprised you get it through customs to...
Yeah, well,
it's biological.
Well, there is rumours that that's where COVID come from. The rear pickup on that bass.
I wouldn't be surprised. People want to know what we're talking about. Just check out the video of Ross talking about the dozer pedal, and do a close up on the neck of his guitar. It's seen the wars. All right, so I want to go back in your youth. You grew up pretty much on the same farm that you're on now, is that right?
Yeah, I've been there all my life. Basically, I lived in Melbourne for 10 years, worked in Melbourne for a little while when I nicked off from school, but I was going back there on the weekends to help the old man. But no, I'm still there. So I've basically been at the farm for 61 years.
Now, that farm, as I understand, it kind of backs on to where the Sunbury Festival was?
No, that was another place. The farm got put onto the market in 1970 or 69, and while it was on the market, my old man got a job on a farm that backed onto the Sunbury Festival site. So we lived on top of the hill, and if you just walked over the hill a bit and then down there, you were viewing sort of the half the rear of the stage, and all the people swimming in the nude.
So you'd be on the hill, 10, 12 years old?
Yes, grade 3. So grade 3, 1970. So, yeah, look, I was, 9. Okay. 9 or 10.
That's where you saw your first boobies from that
hill.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I used to pinch my old man's Playboy and Man magazines, and we had bottoms and boobs in them.
So was music a big part of your life at that point?
Oh, yeah, it was huge. I'd sort of started getting into the rock and roll side of things from, I suppose, from that Sunbury time, and then being exposed to popular radio, because up in the farm when I was a young kid, there was only really the ABC, like the BBC, ABC or whatever, and then getting down to living just outside of Sunbury it was only for 18 months, but all of a sudden there was 3XY, 3AK, they were rock stations, so that was those AM stations were just turned on all the time, and that's when I started really getting into rock and roll and music, and that was a great time to get into it, because there was your glam rock was just starting up and all that kind of stuff, which really appeals to young kids. Just ask Gary Glitter.
So you had this kind of education through the AM radio, were you able to see many bands? Because I know you're pretty far outside of Melbourne, as I understand.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I think one of the first bands I really saw, apart from looking down and sort of seeing a part of the stage at the Sunbury Festival, the first real rock band I went to see was Lobby Lloyd and the Coloured Balls, and they played at the Kyneton Town Hall. And they were handing flyers out. So the odd high school socials, that wasn't until high school that I actually saw live music, which I was very impressed by. You get that so much more excitement out of seeing a band live, obviously. So that was the start of it. And then lucky enough to have a mate who had a sister who was older than us who had a car, and then hence sneaking down to gigs in Melbourne and seeing all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Now, were there a lot of records in the house? Was there a lot of money to be able to buy records? Or
I always worked, and every penny I spent was on vinyl, completely. So I just nothing else. I was going to say my first pair of platform shoes, but no, my mum bought them for me. So no, just it was every penny I had was spent on vinyl.
Right. Do you remember some of those records that you bought with your own money back then?
Yeah, the first album I ever bought was Slade Alive. Then there was Gary Glitter's Touch Me. Then
Still very relevant.
Oh, yeah. And I was lucky my cousin, who was also 6 years older than me, he had a massive record collection. So going up to his place and just going through his record collection was just like being in a record shop. And it was everything he had from hard rock, Deep Purples, Made in Japan, right through to Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells, all that kind of stuff, Pink Floyd, and just whatever was coming out and big, because, rock really dominated, and that's kind of where I got my love of Slade and all that kind of stuff too.
Now, this is my adopted country. I moved here a few decades ago, but I always hear stories of bands like AC/DC and Buffalo playing out in the sticks and doing the different. Do you recall those sort of gigs, or did you attend any of those?
Yeah, I went to see. I didn't get in, but AC/DC played at the Sydenham Town Hall once. But by the time we got down there in an old E.H. Holden car, they'd finished. So they were finished. But apparently they used to do like 3 or 4 gigs a night. All the bands would do then,
They played parks.
Yeah,
parks,
high schools, socials. And the guy that works for me driving one of my bulldozers, he saw AC/DC a lot. And I think the first time he saw them was in a squash court in Sunshine.
Hard-working band.
Yeah, it was too. I don't know how they did it.
Yeah.
Don't know how they did it. I guess they didn't drink as much as what some people do. I don't know.
So what were your parents' reactions to your, I guess, attraction or maybe even infatuation with music?
Well, they didn't like it. They were quite happy for me to buy Kiss records, but they didn't like AC/DC. They thought they were a bit rough. I bought a Skyhooks album, which got taken off me and banned because they just didn't quite get it, because they were wearing makeup and dressed up as women. I wasn't allowed to buy David Bowie albums because he dressed up as a woman, and they thought it was quite disgusting. So I bought them anyway and just hid them under my bed.
Right.
So they were from just another era. I mean, they were Tom Jones, classical. What's that classical stuff? Not yodeling. What is it? Opera stuff. I don't know. Tenors. That's it.
Okay.
They're bloody yodelers anyway. They're all yodelers. So it was completely different. Even Beatles, we were allowed as little kids to have a Beatles record, but not a Rolling Stones record.
Okay, they were just a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah, and there wasn't a lot of money in the house. This is going back to the late 60s, so myself and my 2 sisters, we would share a Christmas present, which would be 20 dynamic hits or 20 explosive hits. We had to share that because there was just no money in the house back then. So it wasn't until I started working odd jobs I could afford my own stuff.
Would they let you have like long hair, or you had to be kept neat?
Oh yeah, I had a great ice cream container haircut. It was fantastic. So you throw in that with a Daggers pair of shoes. Everyone else is wearing platforms. I had Daggers shoes with a buckle on them.
You said you did have platforms, though.
Oh, yeah, this is later on.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, my hair grew. Don't worry about that. It grew. Then I got long hair, then the pierced ears, and then I was kind of a long-haired punk, basically, because I got swept up in the punk stuff in the sort of mid to late 70s. My taste changed a bit more, so following the Saints and which is my all-time favourite band.
Tell me about discovering the Saints.
Seeing them on Countdown on TV and talking, because everyone talked about what was on Countdown, like on the Sunday night, and everybody hung shit on them. They just going, what a terrible band, and they played fast, you couldn't understand it, but it stuck in my head. So there was the Stranded and then Erotic Neurotic, and then I was basically hooked. I just never heard anything fast as that. It was just manic. And that was sort of seeing them and then discovering the Ramones and that kind of flat out kind of stuff. So that sort of took over from your AC/DCs, your Slades, your Kiss. So all those records went under the bed.
So bands like the Ramones, or I'm thinking maybe like Radio Birdman, some of those, that takes a little bit of effort as a kid, especially outside of a major city, to kind of figure out. How did you get familiar? How did you come to understand about those bands?
Probably, again, lucky enough that my best mate at the time, his sister was going to uni in Sydney, and she used to they just went to gigs, just gigs everywhere. So just through knowing her, coming up to Sydney as a young bloke, or her coming down to Melbourne, taking us to gigs, to see Dave Warner in the Suburbs, to see the Models, to see the Boys Next Door, to see Jarb, to see all this sort of underground sort of music coming up. So I used to, just as a 15-year-old. So you were zipping out to Melbourne to see a lot of bands throughout the week. Yeah.
Coming back home and starting, farm work starts early in the morning.
Yeah, well, I was still at high school too, but things weren't too rosy at home, so I basically moved in with me mate for probably nearly most of the year, because his mum was about 70 and we could get away with blue murder. So, and that was just based outside of Kyneton.
Right.
So, yeah, and we used to just nick off.
Okay. So at what point did it dawn on you to say, okay, go from listener to participant?
I suppose, I bought my first bass guitar when I was about 15, and a mate of mine played guitar, and we formed a band called Rancid Spam, and he taught me every song to play on the E string, because I realised then, because I couldn't play anything, I still can't, but I realised the bass guitar was easiest because the strings were fat and you didn't have to do much. So it was then I just sort of thought, well, this is good fun playing in a band, and starting to write ditties and songs and stuff like that.
So it was always bass. You never thought, maybe drums, maybe something else?
I would have loved to have played the drums, but could never... I don't think I'd be coordinated enough. I played that many lead breaks on a tennis racket and a cricket bat. Like, I was one of the best lead guitarists in the world. And a little short pool cue, they were good too. They were also good for running your fingers up and down the neck. They were fantastic. But no, it was just bass. It just seemed easier to play bass because music and I don't really mix that well. So, but I'm not hanging shit on every bass player in the world, but we're not the brightest fucking lot.
So when you picked up that bass, you were just kind of doodling with it. Were you thinking about, okay, I want to maybe play some gigs, maybe make a record? What was your, I guess, motivation for it?
Well, my first motivation was trying to play Dancing in the Moonlight by Thin Lizzy. That took 5 minutes to realise I'll never play the bass lick for that. And then we decided, hang around with my mate who he was the singer. So being a singer, and I don't want to hang shit on every singer, but they're not much chop. But he wanted to do gigs and that kind of stuff. So we ended up doing a high school social, and then just jamming every weekend. Every weekend was dedicated to in his shed making a racket, buying hip flasks of Bond 7 or whatever we bought, just cheap scotch, and just making up music. Playing the same riff called Academic Dalek for about 6 months. Fantastic.
So how long was it from when you started playing the bass, semi-regularly, right, to when you were having the occasional or even regular gigs? Well,
that's probably when we moved down to Melbourne for a little while. So I had a job in Melbourne, and we met Peter Jones, who said he could play guitar, and he lied. And I said I could play bass. I'd lied. So we used to just jam there, and then we met Bill Walsh, who lied even more by saying that he could play the drums. And then we formed Spring Plains. And that was, and then we actually got a residency. We would just make a noise for half an hour.
Right.
And just I don't know. I remember one time playing and I was thinking it was going really well, and I realised 3 songs in I hadn't even plugged my bloody bass in. So it was just sort of kind of arty-farty noise and screaming and yelling and all that kind of stuff, just trying to work out. We never did 2 songs the same. It's kind of a bit like that now, really.
But a residency, I mean, that would mean 5 hours a night or something
Oh,
like that?
no, it was great. It was at the Toad Hotel on a Thursday night, and we got 5 weeks there, I think we got there, but we had to pay for the PA. The biggest crowd we got was 7 people, so we'd play, and they felt sorry for us, and they'd give us a couple of jugs of beer, and then we'd have to pay for the PA, which I think was about $85. So we had to take money to the gig to pay for the PA, so we just split that 4 ways to pay for that.
Yeah, what was bigger, the paying for the PA or the beer, the cost of the beer?
Oh, they felt sorry for us, so they used to give us quite a few jugs of beer for nothing. It was good. Well, that didn't work too good for me because at the time I was working night shift at a hospital, so I had to keep me drinking down to about 3 or 4 jugs because I was working from 11:30 till 8 in the morning. Mm-hmm. So it's not a good idea if you're pissed in an operating theatre. Not that I ever was.
So along comes Mr. Spaceman Records, which I think was your first label. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because so we had a meeting. We booted the singer out, which was a shame because Steve was one of my best mates, but he was infatuated by the Nick Cave thing. And I know there's a lot of people that try to imitate Nick Cave, but he has his own style, and good on him because he's fucking good at it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, don't try and be him because that's him.
Right.
So we booted him out. We had a gig. So we just changed. We had a few riffs. We all wrote lyrics for them, and we played one show at the Prince of Wales, and we bumped into Mr. Spaceman Records, who immediately offered us to come and make a record.
Wow. And then how quickly, because the first record's Down on the Farm?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. How quickly did that whole thing happen?
Pretty much so. We put some money together, and then we recorded it up in our practice room. So we only had 2 mics and just a tiny little mixing disc, and we just recorded there. And then we went down the stairs, packed up, and then went round to Dirty's flat and did the vocals in his bedroom. Mm-hmm. So the recording process was probably a matter of, with shifting, maybe 6 hours. And I think we hired about $600 worth of stuff.
Right.
Like good mics and some stands and that kind of stuff. So
right.
It was pretty quick. And then, I don't know, we went into another studio somewhere in Melbourne to do something else, but it didn't really come out that good. So we just kept the original recording stuff.
Yeah, there's that story about Phantom Records in Sydney ordering 50 copies and thinking that they were defective because of the sound.
Oh, yeah, it was great. It was just like mud. If you could ever get mud onto vinyl, it was perfect.
So that first pressing of Down on the Farm. Now, again, this is where we kind of go into the nerdy section of the podcast. There were some green copies, there were some brown copies, there were some black copies. Do you recall anything about the conversation of the pressings or those sort of colors?
No, because as I said before, I'm a bass player and I didn't pay much attention, but I think I've got a feeling there wasn't many of the coloured ones. Mm-hmm. And I think I only saw that record for the first time when we released that, when we did the thanks, mate. When we did the record launch, but I got so fucked up I can't remember a thing of the whole night. So I just remember seeing boxes of records, and there was the black vinyl, and I'm not sure if the colour didn't come out the second pressing. I can't remember, but I'm just thinking it might have been just all black at first, and then some colours might have come out on another pressing.
Okay.
I think. Look, don't quote me on that.
No, that's fine. That's
not sure.
Yeah,
but I think the black ones were the original ones.
Okay.
But I think there was only, I can't remember if there's 250 or 500 of that first lot.
Right.
There wasn't a lot.
Okay. But you went through them pretty quick.
Yeah. Bugger of I know. Yeah, but they sold out pretty quick.
Okay. All right. So Down on the Farm comes out. Do you recall the story of how those records got promoted overseas? How they ended up kind of on the West Coast and starting to kind of build influence around the Pacific Northwest?
Well, only from people, because I remember Mark Arm and Steve Turner were telling me one time that it just turned up on the West Coast, and they used to hunt for records a bit like I suppose we all did, where if it was an interesting cover or something looked a bit different, you'd buy it. But I think Mark said he was the first one to pick up a copy, sort of as far as the West Coast goes. But as far as being promoted, I wouldn't have a bloody clue, because they just, as things did in those days, they just turned up. But the band was basically promoted by cassettes. Like people you'd play a gig in, say, Europe, and you'd say, "Oh, can you put this cassette on? It's this band I really like." So it's through that. It was sort of through that mateship with other bands. Would go, we've recorded, put the record on, put it on a cassette, and stick it in a mixing desk just to introduce other bands to different clubs. Yeah. So that was the European way of going through. I think Celibate Rifles recorded down on the farm onto a cassette, and when they were in Europe, they were putting it in the desk to play before they played or after they played or whatever, which was kind of bands promoting bands. That's how...
Kind of propagates like a virus almost.
Yeah, and kind of a good way, but very sort of a slow way to do it. But, it's a pre-internet machine. What else could you do?
Because I don't know, I'm unclear of how Mr. Spaceman did its distribution. It seemed to be very direct. It seemed to be Australia-based.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it went international or if there was...
I think he lived with his mum, and he operated Mr. Spaceman from his bedroom, and he had all the copies of just about anything he did just sitting under his bed. Right. And I guess in those days it was all by mail. So if there was an interest, he might have sent a couple of copies to a record shop somewhere, or... So I don't know how it all worked back then, because without the internet machine, you'd wonder how people would hear about it.
Well, we had Bruce Pavitt on the show, Subpop, and he was saying that a lot of records got sent to him from all over the world for review in the Subpop column. And that's how he ended up with a lot of records from around the world, and then wrote about them and people read. And
probably Mario sent it over there, and I imagine that's where Mark would have found it and Steve would have found that. That would have been some little record shop over there.
Now, there were a couple of releases on Mr. Spaceman. There was Down on the Farm, Cosmic Psycho's the self-titled.
Yeah.
Go the Hack was Survival, is that right?
Yeah, that was Survival. So how did that happen? Yeah, that was definitely Survival. Yeah, so I think Mario gave up. He just quit. I don't know. There's probably no money in it. Mm-hmm. And, and then went through Survival.
Everyone's taping his records.
Yeah. Bloody cassettes. Yeah, and then Survival. So, and then I think we did 2 with Survival. I can't remember.
Slave to the Crave, was that Survival?
Oh yeah, that was Survival too. That was the live one, which was pre Go the Hack. Oh, I don't know.
Well, Go the Hack was Survival in Australia.
Yeah,
but then Subpop in the US.
That's right. It was the only Subpop record we had with them, I think.
Yeah. Do you recall how that happened?
Look, I don't know. I think it was just a bit of networking. Bill was the networker. So, and I guess it was our relationship, a budding relationship with a lot of the Seattle bands, where we all sort of started connecting and communicating through letters and through friends, and that, it was kind of, before we met all those, like the Sub-Pop crew, we already knew them just from people, mutual friends and that kind of stuff, and it was, as I said, writing letters.
Right.
So, it was all pretty basic.
That must be pretty astonishing, being a guy, growing up on a farm in rural Melbourne or rural Victoria, and then just getting letters from people around the world saying that they've heard your work.
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird. And then bumping into people, like, you'd meet them for the first time, and they'd heard what you'd done. Because
they repeat your lyrics back to you.
Yeah, but the thing is, you knew what they'd done too half the time. Yeah, so it was great. It was kind of weird, but good. It was. Yeah. Well, actually, it wasn't weird because it was normal. That's what you did. Yeah. There was no other means. It was all word of mouth, and that's it.
So after Sub Pop, there was the Blokes You Can Trust.
Oh yeah,
AmRep.
Yeah, and Blokes You Can Trust. I think that was the last Survival in Australia. I got a feeling. I can't. Yeah, but that went down. We went with AmRep because we I think we met Hazelmyer, and he was a bloody great bloke, and he said, goddamn Subpop, come with us. So we did. So, because, anyway, I won't go into politics, independent record store company politics, but
So I'll repeat a story I heard about Sub Pop, and you let me know if it had anything to do with the decision.
Okay, I'll nod or shake.
Sub Pop was having a difficult time paying artists at that time, and a lot of checks were bouncing, and this is people, not only the artists, but also people in the office. And so a lot of artists kind of did one and done with Sub Pop just because they were having a hard time keeping up. It was... pre-Nirvana. Once Bleach hit, then they could pay all the bills. But this was before then, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can not confirm or deny that.
They've admitted that. That's
yeah,
fine.
Of course it is. Yeah, it was unreal. Bleach saved their skin.
Yeah.
Completely.
Do you recall hearing Bleach from Australia?
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey everyone, I'm here to talk to you about Seems Easy record sleeve repair strips. Ever find a record in a used bin where the vinyl is gorgeous, but the sleeve has this ugly split and is even falling completely apart? Well, that's okay. Grab it anyway, because with Seems Easy record sleeve repair strips, you can fix that right up. Seems Easy record repair strips repair seam splits from the inside, so it doesn't affect the appearance of a record sleeve, but it does make it functional again. With Seems Easy, records can now slide in and out like new. Turn a $5 record into a $25 functioning collectible. Just ask your local record shop for Seems Easy strips, and if they're not in stock, go to SeamsEasy.com. That's Seems Easy with 2 Z's. Seems Easy record sleeve repair strips. Seems easy because it is. Oh, and hey, record nerds, don't forget to clean your records with the very best and safest record cleaner, the Groove Washer. Make your records look and sound their very best and store them with confidence using the new Groove Washer Groove Guard record sleeves. You gotta try this out. It makes a huge difference to the quality of your vinyl experience. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store and accept no substitutes. Or head over to groovewasher.com and use discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
All hail the Groove Washer.
That's groovewasher.com, discount code VINYLGUIDE10.
Now we return to the program, already in progress.
No limits.
Now, do you recall hearing Bleach from Australia?
Oh yeah. We got hold of Bleach when we were over in the States, and we would play the cassette of Bleach, the Sub Pop cassette of Bleach, before every gig because we loved it. Absolutely loved it. So we went over there. Well, the first trip over there, Nirvana were just kicking off. They were going all right, but they weren't. There was nothing special at that stage. We liked them, but yeah, we promoted that as much as we possibly could. Again, by playing it before every gig we ever did, and then the rest is history. But
do you have any memories of working with Nirvana?
The best memory I've got with Nirvana is arriving at Mark and Steve's place in Seattle for the first time and walking in. Oh, and Dan Peters was living there. No, actually, it was Dan's place, sorry. And Nova Selix was there. This is pre-Dave Grohl, so Dan was filling in, doing some recording and stuff. So we just walked in and just walked straight in the door. They didn't even know we were coming because Lucan was away. He'd forgot to tell them. And walked in with a heap of beer, and then Robbie Rocket picked up a banjo and played the theme from Deliverance with his teeth. And then they all looked at each other and went, we're going to band practice, and just left. But no, they were our mates. We used to kick around, have a drink. They were all good blokes. So that's fine, Everyone was the same.
Now, in Australia, some of the labels that were happening at that time, like Waterfront, did you have any overages or any involvement in labels like, or Agogo?
Yeah, on and off. Look, you knew everyone that was involved in them, but not really band-wise, because I don't think they wanted to touch us. So I know we weren't arty-farty enough or something, I don't know. But look, knew all those labels, everyone who ran them and that kind of stuff, and it was all fine. And maybe some distribution went through them, like a Go-Go maybe. Look, as I said, I'm a bass player, mate. I'm here for the beer.
Do you still have access, or does the Cosmic Psychos entity have access to all the master tapes?
Yeah, we've dug up we've unearthed a bit of stuff, haven't we, Alan? We've got masters and dats, and I've got all this stuff everywhere. And there's a little bit of missing stuff. Lindsay from Birdland's got a little bit of some of that, but no, we've basically got all the masters and that kind of stuff. Now, I've got a heap of test pressings and all that kind of stuff from just about everything except down on the farm. I think I've got every test pressing from there.
Okay.
And they're in my shed somewhere. I've got to remember where they are.
Yeah, I was going to say, are they in a temperature-controlled...
No, they used to be in a cardboard box, but the rats ate that. And now they're up in a dusty, dirty shed full of wombat shit. And but I've transferred them to plastic containers, so now the silverfish and the mice can't get in. But they're covered in fucking crud. There'd be an inch of dust and shit over everything. But even Al come up the farm the other day, and he goes, "Have you got any stuff in the shed, Nighty?" And within about 2 cans, I'd unearthed all this shit, like tapes and all this stuff. But yeah,
all sorts of cassettes.
Wow.
Even bands pre-Cosmic Psycho's Rancid Spam and
Spring Plains.
Wow.
I've got milk crates full of reel-to-reel from Spring Plains recording sessions because Steve talked his mum, the old lady, into buying a mixing desk. So there's probably 12 months of recordings and stacks of reel-to-reel just sitting there.
Wow. Now, are you going through any process of just archiving them and kind of saving them?
No, you put them in plastic boxes so the rats don't eat them.
I take it you're not a romantic about your legacy.
Oh, no, I am. That's why they're in the shed. If I wasn't romantic about it, I would have chucked them in the fucking tip.
How about like artwork, like the imagery? Like one thing I know, Blokes You Can Trust, it has 2 different covers, right? There's you with the finger, and then there's the comic one.
Yeah. Well, that was a repressing. Was the comic one. So that was a Fred Negro T-shirt. Mm-hmm. He did that. But yeah, I've got a heap of old posters and all that kind of stuff from way back in the day, and I always kept a T-shirt from every European tour, every American tour. They're in plastic boxes in the shed too, but that sort of, I can look at that shirt and go, well, that was from then, and that's from there, and that, like from the 80s right through to today. I always keep one shirt.
So at some point we could perhaps expect a Cosmic Psychos wandering museum.
Retrospect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you could put them all on, fit them on about 4 clotheslines, I reckon.
Yeah.
And everyone can just walk around with a beer in their hand. And on a windy day, you wouldn't have to move because the clothesline would just turn around. Oh, fuck, that's a good idea.
So there's some Cosmic Psychos vinyl that is exceedingly rare. You probably know. Off You Crew It and what's the other one? Dung, Australia.
Yep.
Only 250 copies of each of those.
Really?
Exceedingly rare.
Shit, I got some in my shed.
You do? Well, protect them from the silverfish because those tend to go for about $250
Really?
per record. Yeah.
Fuck, I might set up a bit of a shop out the front gate.
They didn't sell at the time. He's got 50 of them.
There you go.
I've got a few of them.
That's why they
kicking
didn't
around.
sell. Yeah. They're all in your shed. So is there any consideration about reissuing some of these materials on vinyl?
Yeah, well, I couldn't see. Off Your Crew It would be fun. Look, but without getting too deep, there's been a little bit of political stuff with families from past members, so that slowed things up a little bit. But look, I'd love to re-release Off Your Crew because that was a fun thing to do. I loved that, and the Dung thing was fun too. So, yeah, look, I think in time they'll all get another look in.
Good.
Because it's probably easier. I mean, if you re-release stuff, it's better than coming up with a new one because no one wants to listen to a new one unless you come up with a new record called re-release stuff, and then everyone would buy it. And then they wouldn't know the fucking difference anyway.
I don't know. I'm on either side of that. We like revisiting things, but look, Mountain of Piss and the Soup one, they're still great albums. And, and there's no doubt a few more albums yet to come out.
We got. Well, look, we'll keep doing it because we have fun recording. So it's a good excuse for us to very rarely get together and have fun.
Do you think we'll see something in the next year?
Oh, I think so.
Okay.
We've got we basically got one. We could go into a studio now and we could give you an album by what time is it? What time is it? Oh yeah, we've got. That's the one thing I did do in COVID. There, wrote a concept album called "Journey to the Centre of North of the Back of Fuck." So it's in the lines of Rick Wakeman's "Journey to the Centre of the Earth,"
Right.
except with a bass guitar.
And what does the character do throughout the concept?
Oh, he fucks up really badly.
All right. So you seem to enjoy, back in the day, being very much an instigator of the band, being a bit of the troublemaker. You've now got Macca and Dean in the band. Is there still that spirit, that energy of fucking with people?
Oh, very much so. But I think we just sort of fuck with each other more than anything. And if anyone enjoys that, it's good. So, I mean, really, when you look at it, bloody Macca and Dean are pretty cheeky buggers.
Yeah.
So, now I'm just like the old clock that sits in the corner now.
But they don't get aggravated as much, which is kind of part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, they're pretty easygoing. But
Okay.
but if you can't get angry at stuff, there's not much worth doing, is there? I mean, what do you do? Wake up in the morning and go, I'm not angry at anything today. You might as well chuck it in.
Yeah.
So something's got to piss you off.
Fair enough. Now the book, this new book, The Incredible
Tale of
Tale
Little Roo.
of Little Roo. Tell me about that. How did that come about?
Well, the last thing I could ever think of doing was writing a book, a kid's book, mind you, because it's every man and his dog wrote a kid's book at some time in their life, and I used to go, oh, Christ, not another one. But anyway, I was driving home from work one day, and this little kangaroo, because I quite often have little collisions with kangaroos, there's a lot where I am. Anyway, this little bugger was in the middle of the road, and I was just waiting him to veer off to the left or veer off to the right, but he just sat right in the middle of the road. So I thought, all right, I'll stop. So he stopped. I'll just creep past him. But no, he took off again. Anyway, my beer was getting warm, so I thought, just get off the fucking road or do something useful and put a white line down the middle of the road. Just make yourself useful. And then he finally pissed off. Like I turned off and he kept going. Probably got run over. But and I woke up in the morning and I went, oh, and I just wrote on a bit of paper, and I thought I've just written a book. And then I wrote another 12 in about 15 minutes. But I didn't tell anyone. I was too embarrassed. I told Wezzo, and he rolled his eyes. And then he rang me up and he goes, tell me about this book. Anyway, and Lewis always had to do the animation, because when I was thinking about it, I was thinking of Lewis Fuzzhound to do the animation. Yeah. Like can't say I had a dream. I had a conniptiation. What do you call them? A Catholic something. A capitalism.
An aneurysm?
That's all right, an aneurysm. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Conceptualization.
Yeah, that'll do.
Okay.
What was that?
I forgot.
Yeah, that'll do. Anyway, so, there's 13 stories in all.
13?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because I haven't read the books. All 13 stories are in the book?
I haven't finished the book yet. Okay. No, there's 13 characters, and each one's got a story.
Okay.
So,
is this the first in maybe a series?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but then, well, we'll get this. You only write books for little kids once, because they grow up, and then the next lot of little kids can read that book.
Right.
So hopefully, the next, if we keep going with this, which I'd like to, they'll get a bit, well, I'll kind of make them a bit more naughty. And just sort of do it that way.
Have there been any discussions about animation or taking it to another?
Yeah, it'd be great if we could. But, I mean, that's pretty hard to get anything like that done. But it would suit it really well.
What we need is another pandemic. Keep everyone inside, including the illustrators.
Well, maybe I could have kept playing my old bass guitar.
There you go.
And that could have spread a bit more love around the world and
Patient
kept everyone
zero.
locked up.
Very good. All right, so back on the road. You're doing a tour of Australia right now. Any plans to go beyond Australia's borders?
Yeah, we got a fairly big tour coming up in the States, I think October.
Oh, really? Okay.
About 5 weeks. Back to the States for a good 5 weeks with the Chats, which will be unreal.
Oh, wow.
Good
Fantastic.
bunch of blokes. Good bunch of blokes. And then back to Europe again, I think, early next year, back to do a European stuff. Just do it while we can, because we're not getting any younger. So, get over there and have a bit of fun.
Now, a band like the Chats, you seem to have perhaps taken them under your wing a bit?
Well, we took them under our wing, and then they got popular. Now they're taking us under their wing. So it's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that must bring you a lot of fulfillment to see kind of the spirit of the Psychos kind of living on and evolving.
Oh, yeah, and it's great to see bands starting off and being so nervous and that, but you see them evolve. And yeah, true. It's just in true rock and roll spirit, just to watch them go and not feel jealous.
No.
Just go, there's a sense of pride to go, if we've had 1% of an influence on them, it's a good thing.
What's the sort of wisdom, what's the sort of advice you share with bands like that?
Never give up your day job, because you'll be fucked if you do. So always have something to fall back on, because, well, this has only lasted because it's a hobby. Mm-hmm. So it's nearly 40 years now. So, but, I've always worked. Because if you work, you can get pissed off. If you get pissed off, you can write a song. If you're full-time in a band, there's nothing to complain about except hangovers and I want to stay and watch the telly. Mm-hmm. So then you get pissed off with being in a band, so then you break up the band. And then 6 months later, you want to kill yourself because you haven't got the band anymore. So just get a really shitty job and stick with it and be in a band. That's my only advice.
Oh, okay. What do you make on the farm? What does the farm generate?
Sheep shit. I've got a vineyard on there, which I've leased out. And I used to have cattle. I'll get cattle again, so I lease it out. So just stock and there's 10,000 vines on there. So a bit of wine. So,
we're talking about keeping your day job. Does Mad Macca, does he still do lawyer stuff?
No, Macca works on a computer, and I said, "What do you do on the computer, Macca?" And he goes, so whatever is, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it pays the rent.
It pays the rent, sort of.
It may be part of the beer tab. All right, look, I'm about ready to wrap up. Is there anything vinyl, anything record-wise or recording-wise we should talk about?
Oh, yeah, one thing.
Yep.
We did a split single with the Melvins.
Ooh, yes.
Now, the Psychos did Some Girls, the racy song. Mm-hmm. I refused to play on it. James from the Nursery Crimes played bass on it. I would not go down to Melbourne. It was Bill Walsh's big... He wanted to impress some girlfriend, so he picked the worst fucking song in the world and did this like heartfelt version of it. And I'm going, fuck off. I'm not going down there to play on that. Mm-hmm. So it's the Cosmic Psychos without me.
Okay.
That single. So that's got James from Nursery Crimes, because I just refused to play that song.
I've got that single. It's the one, it's like a cartoon on the front. Yeah. In a car, right?
Yeah, but imagine doing a split single with the Melvins and picking that song. I mean, really?
Is that the only thing branded as Cosmic Psychos that you disassociate with?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But I'll associate with it because I like the Melvins.
Yeah.
So...
maybe it's time to do another split with them, just to correct history.
To. But if anyone's got that single, just get a fucking Stanley knife or a roofing nail and fucking scratch that fucking song out. I hate it.
Do you hear that, kids? All right. Well, look, again, Ross, thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Cheers, mate. It's been a pleasure.
I've always seen you and the band as like this uncorrupted entity. This...
we can be bought. Don't worry about that. Just that one's offering us any money.
You know that island? There's that island of Singal where it's just the indigenous people and they've never been invaded, or they've never had people go in and introduce disease and different things. And if anyone does try to approach them, they run out with spears and kill. Yeah, they're absolutely pure. And you guys, I think, are very much the same way. Instead of spears, it's beers. And anyone gets close, they're tested immediately.
Actually, that could be the new album. Yeah, we throw beers, not spears.
There you go. All right, the tagline.
Unreal.
Look good on a T-shirt. All right, thanks again.
Cheers.
All right,
thank you.
Enjoy. Thank you. All right, there we are, Mr. Ross Knight, Cosmic Psychos. Get their tickets now to see them across the U.S. with the Chats, cosmippsychos.com.au or thechatslovebeer.com. Oh, and by the way, that island I was thinking about, it wasn't Singal, it was North Sentinel Island. So for everyone out there keeping score, I was wrong, but the concept's the same.
All right, so since you stuck around long enough, I'll tell you the story of how this interview came together. So, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, this is the first face-to-face interview we've had since the pandemic, for obvious reasons. But we're not a show that does a lot of face-to-face interviews anyway. Zoom and Skype are so much more accessible and user-friendly and convenient for people to join in. Not everyone can be in Sydney at any given time, so it tends to be the way that things happen just over those sort of video conferencing mediums. But when we get an opportunity to do a face-to-face, absolutely jump on it. And I'm a big fan of Cosmic Psychos. I've always wanted to have them on the show. Over the last year, the management of the band and I have been going back and forth, trying to find a right time to be able to have Ross on the show, to be able to develop this feature. And when Ross's book came out, and then they were doing some dates around Australia, we figured this is the right time. So, figured out what day they're going to be in Sydney. They're playing at the Crowbar, which is in Leichhardt, which is a great little area of Sydney. We thought, okay, that's perfect. Let's set up the interview that day at 2 o'clock. So, I arrived to the venue a little after 1, set up everything, do a sound check, waiting for Ross and the gang to arrive. So they arrived shortly after 2. Ross comes straight in the green room, shakes my hand. We exchange some pleasantries, and then he heads straight over to the beer fridge, which is fully stocked. And luckily it was, because the Cosmic Psychos were coming into town, and that just that's the fuel that they run on. So he offers me a beer, and I decline politely because I'm about to do an interview, but I have full intention on having a nice cold one directly after. It's a hot day in Sydney. It was nice and steamy, and when you listen to the interview, you could hear the air conditioning going kind of full blast because it was very very hot. It's a Australian summer day. So Ross sits down. We have the interview. He's absolutely charming, as you've heard, and probably in that first hour he puts away 2, maybe 3 beers. And if you listen to the background, you could hear the fridge open a couple of times. I mean, there's other folks in the room. Dean's in the room, Al's in the room, a few people of the Cosmic Psychos crew were there, and they're going back and forth to the fridge, and they're polite, but they're chiming in when they can. You'd hear me in the interview kind of boosting the levels here and there, so you could hear what's happening and some of the conversation points that aren't Ross or myself. And if you listen even more closely, you could hear beer bottles being opened and bottle caps clink, 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 that sort of thing. So it's a very real interview. I really liked the playback of this because it really feels like you're in the room. So the interview started at 2, and we ended just before 3 because at 3 o'clock, there's going to be a show, but it's for kids. It's there's a band, and I forgot the name of the band, but they were a kid-friendly band. And then Ross was going to do a reading from his book, The Incredible Tale of Little Roo. And so we go downstairs to Crowbar, and there's a lot of kids there. I mean, I want to say a couple of dozen easily. And their parents are there, fans of music and Cosmic Psychos, and they're bringing their kids in for this unique event. So there's kids sitting at little tables. They're getting all sugared up and drinking sodas and eating hot dogs and whatnot. And the band's playing a few songs. Then Ross comes down, and he does a reading from his book, The Incredible Tale of Little Roo. The kids love it. They're all applauding. Everyone's having fun. Someone hands Ross a bass, and he plays with the band the song Good Day to Go to the Pub, which is always a crowd pleaser. Kids love that. And then they do this little bit. And the illustrator of the book, great illustrator, and he did a little class with the kids. Everyone had paper, and he showed them how to draw Little Roo. And so they all drew Little Roo, and Ross would come around and comment on everyone's drawings. And again, very, very charming. It was very, very family friendly and a great afternoon for all. And in the meanwhile, the interview's over. I've had a beer. The boys have had many more beers than me. I run out, drop off my equipment, grab my wife. We come back, start hanging out and drinking with Cosmic Psychos. And I'm keeping up with the Cosmic Psychos maybe 30%. For every 3 beers they would have, I would probably have 1. I consider myself a lightweight. I'm fine. I'm not ashamed of that at all. But with the sheer volume of beers that were going on, by the time the band went on, I had probably 6 or 7, maybe even starting to approach 10 towards the end of the night. But to their credit, Cosmic Psychos, they are like gladiator warriors when it comes to drinking. I mean, here in the green room, Ross is sitting in his chair, holding court, telling stories, Dean's there telling stories. Mac is telling stories. Everyone's just having a good time bullshitting. They got lots of friends coming in from Sydney. Fitzy was there. All sorts of people were just kind of hanging out and having a good time. And of course, the beers were flowing. So by the time they hit the stage, I would estimate about 15 beers or 20 beers in their gut. And they put on a fantastic show. Incredible. If I'd had half of what they had, I'd be on the floor. But fortunately or unfortunately, I had about 30% of what they had. So I was well past my limit. There's no way I could drive. After the show, I wasn't up for the hang, so we Ubered home. The next day, my head was pounding. I'm not even sure I was right the following day. I was moving very, very slow. And I check online to Cosmic Psychos kept going like champions throughout the evening, woke up the next day. I think there was another gig the next day. They're just machines. I mean, impressive. And the reason I'm sharing this is because they're about to go to the U.S. And I know a lot of you listeners are going to go see Cosmic Psychos and the Chats. And I've hung out with Cosmic Psychos and drank with them. I've hung out with the Chats and drank with them. They are well-tuned machines. If anyone has any ideas about going drinking with the Chats or the Cosmic Psychos, you better make plans for the next day to do nothing. All right? These guys have Olympic-level livers. All right? So it's a great time. I absolutely love hanging with them and bullshitting, and had a wonderful time with both Cosmic Psychos and Chats. And I look forward to doing it again. Only next time, I'm going to plan it differently. I'm going to make sure that there's food in the fridge when I get home for the next day, because I know I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to be sitting in front of the TV doing fuck all and swallowing ibuprofen. So there it is. Go see Cosmic Psychos and the Chats, cosmic-psychos.com.au, thechatslovebeer.com. There it is right in the title. Enjoy those shows. If you get a chance to meet those blokes, take every opportunity to do so. If they hand you a beer, be prepared to enjoy it, because you're not going to get these opportunities that often. So there we go. Huge thanks to Ross and the Cosmic Psychos and their management team and everyone involved for making this happen. You guys are absolute dead set legends. Can't wait to see you next time you're in town and have a raging headache the next day. And by the way, I took a few pictures of the night hanging out. I'll throw them up on Instagram, instagram.com/Vinyl Guide. Go on up there, check them out, have fun, and enjoy yourselves. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please share these episodes on your social media. Put them on Facebook, tweet them out on Twitter, share them in groups and forums and on Reddit and all those other corners of the internet where record nerds may lurk. That is always appreciated. Leave us a positive review, too. That's always super cool up on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get the podcast. Say some nice words. Give us 5 out of 5. Say something nice. Make us blush. That is always appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and support some music, people. Cheers.